Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the second session of our webinar. So in this session, we're going to focus on maximizing the delivery of the Global Convention. In case of those that have just joined us, my name is Agatha Chisha, the co-chairperson for the World Wetlands Network. I will be moderating this session. So we're going to have three presenters. We'll have the first presenter who will tell us more about controlling of invasive species in the Zambia's wetlands ecosystem for improved biodiversity and livelihoods. Then we're going to have some dipping into the conventions from the Secretariat. Then we'll learn more about sustainable grasslands and wetlands management in Zimbabwe. So at this point, I will invite Swithin Kashulwe to speak more to the invasive species that they've been working on in their wetlands in Zambia. Swithin, are you able to share your screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, please. You can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. So my name is Swithin Kashulwe. I am the Habitat Conservation Officer at Biodiversity Zambia. So I will be speaking to controlling invasive species in Zambia's wetland ecosystems for improved biodiversity and livelihood. So I'll just speak briefly about who we are, Birdwatch. So Birdwatch is a local environmental conservation organization, and our focus is bird conservation. So we promote the study, conservation, and general interest in birds and their habitats in the country. So we are a partner to BirdLife International, and our activities are centered on Zambia's 42 key biodiversity areas. So this includes wetlands, protected areas, and non-protected areas. So we work under four thematic areas, that is species, sites, which I'm going to speak to, then societies and systems. So to talk more about the invasive species control, so we have been doing some habitat restoration projects in two of Zambia's important key biodiversity areas, and these are also designated Ramsar sites. So one is the Mimosa Pigra control on the Barossa floodplain in the western part of the country, and the other one is the Salvinia control project that we've been implementing on the Lukanga swamps in the central part of the country. So in terms of Salvinia molesta, so Salvinia molesta is an invasive species, is an aquatic plant which is native to southeastern Brazil, and it has colonized many water bodies around the world. So in terms of the control attempts that we've done on the Salvinia molesta, so in 2013, because this Salvinia molesta on the Lukanga swamps was observed in 2019. So this was during our routine habitat monitoring and biodiversity monitoring. So we initiated the mechanical control in 2013, and this was after we received funding from the embassies in the country. That was the Swedish embassy, Denmark, and Netherlands embassy. So they put funds together for environmental work, and this project we're calling it a CSEF, which was Civil Society Environmental Fund. So this project was basically trying to remove this weed from the swamp, so that we can try and see if we can fight it and control it by using the mechanical method. But the problem that came with this method was that it was unsustainable. So as you may see on the picture, it came with health and safety concerns for the local people, because we just engaged the local people to help us remove this weed from the swamp. And another problem was that after removing this weed from the swamp, we put it on the land, it would dry up, and the problem was that after it dries up, we would try to burn it. Some would burn and there were those which were remaining. So when the rain season comes and the area gets flooded, the salvinia could sprout back and be washed back in the swamps. So after some research about the control method of invasive species, we came up now with a biological control that we started implementing in 2017. So this biological control was funded by the Darwin Initiative from the UK government. So this biocontrol uses a small beetle, which we call the Salvinia weevil, or scientifically known as the Cytobogus salviniae. So this weevil, what it does is it is host specific, but it only feeds on Salvinia molesta. So when it feeds on Salvinia molesta and there is no more Salvinia molesta, it starves to death and it dies. So we haven't observed any impact on other aquatic plants or any biodiversity in the swamps. So in terms of the results from this project, the biological control, we found that it was very effective. And as you can see on your left, the top picture was taken in 2017 when the infestation, when we started implementing the biological control. And the bottom picture on the left was taken in 2021. That was 4 years later after the implementation of the project. And the graph on the right is just showing how Salvinia molesta was projected to grow if no interventions were put in place to control it. So you can see the blue line, how it's going. So that's how we projected that Salvinia was going to cover the Lukanga swamps in 4 or 5 years' time. So there has been now, because this project, the Darwin-funded project, ended in 2021, and we continue looking for funds to continue with this project because we understood that the work had not been completely done, and the Darwin-funded project really did amazing job, and the results were evident to see how the impact that the project left on the Lukanga swamps. So now in 2022, we received funding from WWF Zambia to continue the project, which we've continued. It is still the biological control method, and we are using the same beetle, the Cytobogus salviniae, to see that we introduce it into more areas that are still infested on the Lukanga swamps. So this project is ongoing, but it is coming to an end in June this year. Moving to another wetland where we've been working to control invasive species, basically to restore habitats. It is the Barossa floodplain in the western part of the country. So this is an equibiodiverse area which hosts a diversity of wildlife and avian species. So we pride in these areas because as Birdwatch, we deal with bird conservation at the organization. So prior to the implementation of this project, we did the mapping in 2022. There was a mapping which was done in 2020 by ICF and WWF, and it was found that this Mimosa pigra was covering at least 10 hectares of land on the Barossa floodplain. And when we did our mapping in 2022, we discovered that the coverage of the Mimosa pigra had grown, and it was now at over 15 hectares coverage of the Barossa floodplain. And the other thing was, the method that we used was Survey 1, 2, 3, where we were basically estimating the length and the width of the stands of Mimosa, and then it automatically calculates the area. But when we started implementing the project, what we discovered was that because the mapping was done when this wetland was flooded to some extent, so there were some areas that we could not reach. So when we started implementing this project, we discovered that the estimation of the coverage was an underestimation, because we discovered more areas that were infested, because by the time we were starting to implement the project, the flooding had receded, so we could reach more areas that we could not reach when we did the mapping. So we engaged the local communities to help us clear this maps. So we used the mechanical control, and this project was ran from 2022 April to December 2023. And so the results from this mechanical control of Mimosa pigra was that we have cleared at least 10 hectares of the 15 that we mapped. And this has been done over a period of 6 months. And what we discovered again was that if we were to include the areas that we discovered that we had omitted unintentionally when doing the mapping, this could go beyond the 10 hectares that we estimated that have been cleared, because we used the maps that we did during mapping to estimate how much area has been cleared. And we have reached over 1,000 community members through awareness raising, basically educating them or raising awareness about the impacts of invasive species and how it affects biodiversity and the landscape in general. And additionally, we have trained community members in basic habitat monitoring and bird identification. So our goal is to see that we adopt this group as a site support group who will be helping us to monitor this habitat even in our absence in the area. So these community members were trained, and we look forward to train more members in this community. So we are still actively looking for funds. Hopefully we can get more funds to continue with the project. But this year we'll be starting doing the habitat and species monitoring on the Barossa floodplains. Thank you. That was all from me.
Thank you very much, Swithin, for that wonderful presentation. And now I'll call upon Zebedee Njisuh to just tell us more about maximizing the Global Convention, maximizing the delivery of the Global Convention. Zebedee, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It's a great joy, great pleasure to meet you all today, and to see that all of you have come together to promote wetlands. So exciting presentations from the first segment, and now we are into the second part. So 2022, the end of 2022 was an exciting year for the world. An exciting year because we were just about getting out of COVID. But December came and we saw the birth of the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. This framework offers a new hope for global cooperation to halt the alarming rate of biodiversity loss worldwide. Although this framework exists, and as you all know, there are many global multilateral environmental agreements, of which the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands is one. For us to succeed, each of these environmental agreements must recognize that the implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework must build on individual and as well as collective efforts of each of these multilateral agreements. Ensuring that this framework succeeds means that there will be times we need to let go of our individual pride or agendas in order to promote global success. We have heard from many interventions, particularly the one from the Congo, how the challenges of generating funding to support some of the research at the local level happens.
Excuse me, sorry, Zebedee?
Yes.
I think the translation is not working. Could you just double check on your closed captions that you've set your language to English? So at the bottom, do you see where, did you find closed captions?
Closed
or the
caption.
3 dots?
Where should I see that, please?
So there should be, along the bottom, it either says CC, captions, or there's 3 dots.
Show captions.
Yeah. Can you see a box which is labeled CC?
French speaking.
Yes. So you need to put in that you're speaking English. Yeah, because if it doesn't know what language you're speaking, then the translation doesn't work. So if you could put in that your languages are English.
Okay. Does that work?
Yes, that looks better. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'll start all over.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, colleagues, and sorry for that technical glitch there. So as I was saying, 2022 was a fantastic year for us, both because we were getting out of COVID-19, but also December that same year saw us. When I say us, the global environmental community coming together in Montreal to agree for a historic Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Frameworks that offers new hope for global cooperation to halt the alarming rate of biodiversity loss worldwide. Although this framework has come to be, each individual multilateral environmental agreement, of which the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands is one, must recognize that the implementation of this framework must build on our individual, but also most importantly, collective efforts, and also on the decisions that came along with the framework. So ensuring the successful implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework means that at given times, we must forego our personal egos for the benefit of the world. The Convention on Wetlands recognizes the importance of synergies in implementing multilateral environmental agreements, and it has developed resolutions to this regard. As some of you may know, the Convention on Wetlands is the designated partner by the Convention on Biodiversity to represent its work on wetlands. And so far, the Convention on Wetlands has mapped all of the indicators in the Global Biodiversity Framework against its current strategic plan which is about to end in 2025. We are currently working on a seed joint work plan with the Convention on Biodiversity, which is going to take into consideration the indicators of the biodiversity framework that is ultimately going to lead us into 2030. But ultimately, the implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework depends or is largely a national responsibility. What does that mean? It means that for you NGOs that are gathered here today, it is your responsibility, not only government, to come together and agree on how you will support the implementation of this biodiversity Global Biodiversity Framework. The Convention on Wetlands Secretariat can do all it can at the level of Geneva, but ultimately actions happen on the ground. As I was saying, our colleague from the Congo did mention the challenges of generating funding to support research. We just had the presentation on invasive species from our colleague from Zambia. If all of that is not brought together under the umbrella of the government institution that reports to the Convention on Wetlands, we will never know about these challenges, but we will never know about these success stories. So it is your collective effort to support the government so that together you would deliver this very important global biodiversity framework. At the moment, countries are reviewing their national biodiversity strategic action plans. Those strategic plans would never be complete without the contributions of you NGOs. I listened very keenly to the presentation from our colleague from Morocco, who was talking about the flow rate of water enshrined in international institutions. One of the greatest challenges for wetlands worldwide, and why it is considered one of the most threatened ecosystems, is because for a very long time, these systems have been considered wastelands, and they continue to be. A recent analysis by FAO has shown that although environmental agreements are increasing, the transposition of the content of these environmental agreements from global level to national level is almost inexistent, meaning that at national level, most of the countries do not recognize the provisions of resolutions adopted by the Convention on Wetlands, which is simple. It simply means that when it comes to decision-making, economic priorities take precedence over the conservation of wetlands. And hence, we go back to the drawback of considering wetlands as wastelands. So for us to contribute effectively to the conservation of wetlands at the national level, and for that collective to have impact at the global level, the contribution of you, national NGOs, is vital. It is critical. It is important to continue advocating and pointing out the faults of governments, of what they have done or what they have not done. But it is your responsibility as citizens, it is your responsibilities as advocates to support the governments so that collectively you will contribute to deliver local agendas, national agendas, and global agendas to ensure that by 2030, we might have made some progress towards implementing the Global Biodiversity Framework, Global Biodiversity Framework as a team. With that, I will thank you and hope to get your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zebedee. This was very informative. We will now have Ronald Chirimuta, who's going to tell us the challenges and tools for conservation in the sustainable grassland wetlands management in Zimbabwe. Ronald, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, please, you can go ahead.
Okay. So my name is Ronald Chirimuta. Everyone calls me Ronnie, and I'll be presenting on the sustainable grasslands management, grassland wetland management in Zimbabwe, the challenges and tools for conservation. So yes, I'm part of BirdLife Zimbabwe, which is a locally registered not-for-profit conservation organization that is promoting the survival of the birds in the country and together with the biodiversity for both their intrinsic value and also for the enjoyment of the current and the future generations. Our biodiversity is and natural ecosystem and ecosystem services are our natural capital, and these must be preserved as the foundations for a sustainable future for all of us. So in terms of the status of wetlands in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe has a lot of grassland, is characterized by a lot of relatively small headwater wetlands with a few large signature wetlands. And by these headwater wetlands, these are the catchment basins for the country, the catchment basins for our wetlands. They act like a sponge. So during the rainy season, they absorb the water. And then during the dry season rather, they then release this water into our rivers and streams. All the rivers and streams, they originate from these headwater wetlands. Then in terms of the state, 18% of the wetlands in the country are classified as intact, 55% are moderately degraded, whilst 27% are severely degraded. This is according to the Environmental Management Agency. This was in 2018. Then the capital city for Zimbabwe, Harare, has lost about 50% of its wetlands. Apologies a bit, it's taking a bit of time to move to the next slide. And the main threats that the wetlands in Zimbabwe are facing, there's aspect of crop production, both in the rural and in urban areas. Then there's infrastructural development, which is contributing to the draining of this wetland ecosystem, excessive commercial water abstraction, invasive plant species. Then one key thing is private ownership of wetlands. This is now resulting in the private owners thinking that since they own the wetland, they can develop as they please, as they own that piece of land, which the Constitution says that the wetlands are a water source and they must be protected. Then the government has been putting in place policies to protect the wetland. And what they've done is that they've developed a national wetland master plan. And this includes a national wetlands policy, guidelines for wetlands management, and a national wetlands map. So despite the presence of these policies, the wetlands are still disappearing. And this is because of a lack of enforcement and also because there are loopholes within the wetlands master plan and the legislation, which is the loopholes are being used to the detriment of our wetland ecosystem. Then also there's issues of grazing of livestock on rural wetlands. So I think for the threats, these might be similar in the different countries. Then with regards to what we're doing as BirdLife Zimbabwe, as conservation tools for the protection and management of these wetlands, we're into aspects of wetland research to guide the decision and policy making. So this wetland research, we work closely with the tertiary institutions in the country for the scientific research, which then influences the policy and the advocacy initiatives that we take. Then there's also a lot of citizen science that is involved, and this is mainly by BirdLife Zimbabwe members. when they conduct waterbed counts, just to monitor the trends numbers of waterbeds at different wetland sites, just to have a better understanding of what is happening towards those particular species. Then we're also working towards the strengthening of environmental policy, planning, and legal instruments. Currently, we're pushing for the development and establishment of local environmental action plans for all local authorities, and also master plans for these local authorities. These will be documents that guideline the developments that will take place in every local authority within the country. Then in other cases, we've adopted the route of going for litigation. This whereby we're actually taking court cases, and particularly examples when environmental impact assessments or development permits have been issued irregularly. We then challenge these cases within the courts. Then there's also aspects of our citizen agents. This is whereby we capacitate community members to become stewards of their wetlands, so that they have better understanding of why the wetland is important to them, and so that they can also start taking measures or steps to start protecting their wetlands. And I'm happy that within this webinar, we've got 4 community-based organizations that we are working with. They are part of this webinar, just to have a better understanding of what other countries are doing in terms of wetland protection, and how best they can then modify their own actions. Then also collective action. There are different organizations that are working towards the protection of wetlands. For some, it's because of biodiversity, others it's because of water. Then for others, it's because of the human rights component. So there's a lot of collective action that is then taking place to then address the issues of these conserving these wetlands. Then from the picture there, you see that that is a walk on Monavofle. There's a lot of education and awareness that we conduct, both with we conduct this with our primary school students, secondary, tertiary, and even with our communities, just to get them to have a better understanding of their wetlands and why they're important. Then in March, this March, Zimbabwe signed the agreement that we are going to be hosting the Ramsar COP15 in Victoria Falls in July 2025. So in the 2 images there, on the left, you can see the SG for Ramsar signing the agreement with our then Minister of Environment. Then the picture on the right, that is a tour of one of the Ramsar sites that we have in Harare. In Zimbabwe, there are 7 Ramsar sites, and the SG visited 3 of the Ramsar sites that are close to Harare, just to have an appreciation of what is being done by government, NGOs, and communities towards managing this wetland ecosystem. So the Ramsar COP, it presents a lot of opportunities for Zimbabwe and also for the region. The spotlight is going to be on us as a country and as a region, and we need to showcase that we are protecting our wetlands, and also give ideas to others on how best they can manage their wetland ecosystem. So there's an opportunity for local and regional collaboration to advocate for the preservation of wetlands. And these wetlands, they are interconnected system. We always have this debate with our Zambian colleagues about which country has got the better view of the Victoria Falls. But we're all in agreement that if the catchment areas, if anything happens to the Zimbabwean side of Vic Falls or the Zambian side, then that view is going to be affected. Currently, Southern Africa, we're experiencing one of the worst dry periods ever. And if the wetland ecosystems that cover Zambia, Angola, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, that where the Zambezi River flows, it means that the Victoria Falls is going to be affected. So therefore, there is need for that regional collaboration to manage the wetland ecosystem, as they are interconnected and they benefit a wide variety of countries. Then also in the lead up to the COP, it's an opportunity for us to showcase solutions to wetland management and restoration. We believe that before the COP, we should be talking or giving examples of wetlands that have been managed and restored, and that they can be used as models that can then be replicated across the globe. Then it also presents an opportunity to raise more public awareness on the need to preserve wetlands and wetland biodiversity for ecosystem service, particularly water, and also trying to get from communities why the wetlands are important from a local or a cultural perspective. I think this COP presents an opportunity to get the cultural importance of wetlands and use this as tools to further raise public awareness. Then also the aspect of collective advocacy for the strengthening of policies and legislation to secure the protection of wetlands and Ramsar sites. This point also speaks to the, in 2020, during the Pan-African Ornithological Congress, one of the questions that was asked is, once sites have been designated as Ramsar sites, how do they become different from ordinary wetlands? What does the Ramsar sites actually entail? So I think there's also need to then start strengthening the policy to ensure that the Ramsar sites that have been gazetted in the different countries get more protection. Then another aspect is conservation of migratory birds and their flyways. So these birds, they use the different flyways and wetland sites in different countries as breeding sites. And we always say that birds have got no borders. Anything that happens in Zimbabwe or Zambia as a breeding site will, in the long run, affect the numbers of any particular bird species. So the COP15 presents an opportunity for collaboration in the conservation of migratory birds and flyways. Then on the last slide here, I've just highlighted some of the key or flagship species that are found on wetland ecosystem. So the first one is the wattled crane, then there's a great crowned crane, blue swallow, and the streaky-breasted flufftail. These are some of the birds of biodiversity that we should look towards monitoring, as their presence indicates the healthy nature of an wetland ecosystem. So when they are increasing, it shows that the ecosystem is protected and is being restored, is being managed well. Whereas when their numbers are decreasing, this actually shows that something is detrimental to the ecosystem is happening, and therefore efforts needs to be taken in to manage those wetland ecosystem. And I think in a nutshell, this has been my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. That was very informative. I will now open the floor for questions. I haven't seen any questions in the chat, so if you have any question, you can simply raise your hand. Zebedee, can go ahead.
Yes, moderator. I just want to thank all the presenters, but most importantly, the last presenter who has just showcased what partnerships or collaborations means in the context of the implementation of multilateral environmental agreements. The call about the upcoming Convention on Wetlands COP15, scheduled to take place in Zimbabwe during the month of July 2025, is a call to all NGOs in the continent. And so those present here, is an opportunity for you to come and showcase what you are doing on wetlands, positive, negative. We have a tendency of learning or thinking that best practices are the best way to learn, but bad practices also inform us of what is not working and how we can learn from it. So I really want to join the last presenter to call on all of us to take note of this date and start preparing, because this is not only a COP for the NGOs. It is an African COP, and people are really looking forward to not only seeing the beautiful Victoria Falls, but also seeing or experiencing what the continent is doing concerning the conservation or wise use of wetlands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zebedee. Chris, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Agatha. Yes, I was just very impressed with all of those presentations, and just had a specific question for Swithin and Ronnie. Obviously, both happy to share your Victoria Falls, and for Agatha, in fact. So for NGOs and the NGO community, what does COP offer for you as an opportunity locally to improve wetland conservation? And what can we help with as WWN to help you use the tool of the COP to support your work?
Swithin, do you want to go first?
Hello, Agatha. I can go first. If you can just repeat the last part of the question.
Yeah, definitely. It was really about what opportunities the Conference of the Parties, COP15, brings to you in the surrounding countries, because I've been to COPs before, and sometimes the country really embraces it and they use it to promote wetland conservation, and sometimes it doesn't seem to get noticed. So I'm just wondering how it will affect you guys to have the event close to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. So I believe the COP15 being held in Zimbabwe presents an opportunity for us to showcase our work on wetlands, what we are doing, our challenges, success stories, and the steps that we've made towards wetland conservation in the country, so that we can protect biodiversity and these important wetlands.
Maybe then Ronnie or Agatha?
I think from my end, I would say that it's an opportunity to create a platform whereby we're building momentum through this platform, whereby we build momentum as we head to the COP, and we get more people and more stakeholders to participate. So even for the World WWN, we're getting more stakeholders to be a part of it, more expertise, more voices, and that way, when there are more voices, we're sharing more challenges, more experiences, and creating a better opportunity to better manage the wetland ecosystems at a global scale. And also, I'd say for Bella Zimbabwe, it's an opportunity for us to showcase or highlight some of the key biodiversity that is present within the country, and what the challenges are, and what we can then do to better protect some of the species. And also, I was speaking to a colleague, and he was saying that it's an opportunity to raise the voices of communities, particularly in rural areas, where they can speak about what monitoring or restoration activities that they've been doing, and where the opportunities to source funding to replicate this in other areas can then be done.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ronnie. Can we have Mariano? Mariano, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Agatha. But I want to speak French. Okay. Je voudrais remercier tous les présentateurs. Et c'est beaucoup plus, c'est pas vraiment une question, donc une partie vraiment question et une autre partie suggestion. Je voudrais demander, est-ce qu'il y a des moyens que la Convention Ramsar a de faire pression sur les États qui sont partis La réalité sur le terrain est que beaucoup d'organisations de la société civile font des sensibilisations, travaillent avec les communautés pour que les zones humides soient préservées du mieux qu'elles peuvent être, font des actions de restauration également en partie, mais dans la majorité des cas, si je prends le cas du Bénin, pratiquement tout le sud, nous avons 2 sites Ramsar, mais l'essentiel des activités économiques se déroulent dans cette partie du pays. L'État a plusieurs projets de grandes envergures qui ignorent totalement ces conventions. Ils font des aménagements, des zones humides sont comblées et tout. Les ONG peuvent créer, faire des actions de plaidoyer, faire des dénonciations, mais ça n'oblige pas pour autant les États à les écouter et à prendre en considération ces cris d'alerte. Donc, je voudrais savoir, est-ce que des organisations ont déjà, dans le passé, peut-être fait recours à certains moyens pour obliger les États ou les gouvernants à prendre en compte leurs responsabilités dans ces conventions qu'ils s'empressent d'aller signer? Et où est-ce que la Convention Ramsar a, disons, des moyens de faire pression sur ces gouvernements si, entre-temps, des ONG les alertaient sur certains projets de grande envergure qui vont affecter considérablement les zones humides et aussi les populations humaines qui vivent et dépendent de ces zones humides? Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Mariano. I don't know, Chris, would you like to maybe speak to what Mariano has just said? I'm thinking maybe this is directed to Zebedee.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's true. Zebedee, is that something you could respond to?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mariano. I hope the translation is okay now. So, yes, the convention, the Secretariat can do or make, as you call it, bring upon some pressure to those governments. But the kind of pressure or activities that you as NGOs may expect can be very disappointing to you, because all multilateral environmental agreements have a way that they function. For instance, the Convention on Wetlands has many decision-making bodies, the highest of which is the Conference of the Contracting Parties. And the Conference of the Contracting Parties is actually the government. So the various government, the states that you are asking us to go and be pressurizing. But remember, they are we report to them. We basically report to them. So the Convention on Wetlands, for instance, has no enforcement tools that obliges the Secretariat or instructs the Secretariat to put pressure on the governments. The closest thing we have is the Ramsar Advisory Mission. But for the Ramsar Advisory Mission to be implemented, the governments needs to invite the Secretariat to come to their country and look at the threats, then with an international independent consultant to provide guidance on what can be done. So I think some of the anxieties of NGOs could be managed by them understanding about these multilateral environmental agreement processes, how they function. The Secretariat of the Convention on Wetlands, for instance, is the smallest organ of the Convention on Wetlands. In fact, we take instructions from countries during the COP15 that is going to happen in Zimbabwe. Resolutions will be adopted. So our work plan will be developed based on those resolutions. There will be a new strategic plan for the coming 9 years. So from 2026 to 2034, thereabout. And that strategic plan lays out what it is expected of the convention within the next 9 years, but also the resolutions instructs the Secretariat on what to be doing. So why the Secretariat may really want to go out when a mining a concession is degrading wetlands in the Congo, for instance, our hands are tied because parties have not instructed us. It is like you have a boss who has employed you, and then suddenly the boss sees you coming into his house to remove his chairs without him giving you authorization. It can be very detrimental. So I think one of the things that we as MEAs need to do is really to raise awareness among the civil society on how the multilateral environmental agreement processes work.
Just briefly, once the photo session is done, you can move back here. How about you?
Okay. So I don't know if that answers your question, but if you have follow-up questions, I'm happy to help. Thank you.
Agatha, I think Iman maybe had an example.
Okay. Iman, you can go ahead. Then we'll have Floyd after Iman.
Ok, merci. Juste, j'ai parlé de l'exemple quand on était en 2018 dans la COP Ramsar à Dubaï. C'était le cas d'une zone humide en Tunisie qui est Ramsar et en péril. Et nous sommes adressés au secrétariat Ramsar en ce moment-là. Et le réseau aussi nous a aidés, le réseau WWN, pour notre mission. Donc, normalement, le secrétariat Ramsar s'est adressé au gouvernement tunisien pour dire qu'est-ce qui se passe dans cette zone-là. Et on devait avoir une mission aussi de Ramsar pour voir le site, mais c'était malheureusement le Covid. Mais j'ai dit dans ma remarque qu'il faut avoir aussi, il ne faut pas seulement s'adresser à Ramsar pour faire la pression, mais il faut faire des recherches scientifiques, des inventaires pour prouver au gouvernement que la zone, elle est importante, qu'il ne s'agit pas de décharges, de zones pour jeter des ordures, etc. Donc, la valeur, valoriser et comptabiliser les services rendus par la zone humide. Ça, c'est très important. Et les inventaires, c'est très important. La sensibilisation des communautés locales aussi, c'est très important. Donc, c'est un tout. Ce n'est pas seulement une pression sur le gouvernement, mais c'est le plaidoyer, la sensibilisation, la recherche, c'est un tout. Merci.
Thank you, Iman. Floyd, you can go ahead now.
Thanks, Agatha. I want to start by saying thanks to all the presenters for those amazing presentations. I've learned a lot. My question is for Dr. Hamrouni. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, the one who presented on the impacts of climate change on Africa wetlands. You talked about papyrus on Lake Chad, and I just wanted to hear if there's something that is being done to control the papyrus, what method are they using, and if at all the methods being used are effective, because we have a similar problem on the Kafue Flats. We have Mimosa pigra, which is actually the major problem in invasive species that we're dealing with. But what we've observed is that after we control Mimosa pigra, then Taifa and Mimosa is spreading in those areas and covering the wetlands. So I just wanted to learn something. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But I didn't hear the first part of the question of your question. Can you please repeat it?
I just wanted to hear what is being done on Lake Victoria to control papyrus, which is impacting on the wetland. What methods are they using, and if at all the methods are effective?
Okay, so in the Lake Victoria, the main threat is the change of the land use and land cover around the lake. because the climate change is only exacerbating the effect of the pressure caused by human, because by changing the land use and the land cover around the lake, the man what did is to change the circuit of rivers, and the agriculture is polluting. It's kind of agriculture which is really degrading the soil, degrading the ecosystem, and changing the habitat, the habitat surrounding the lake. So you know that the level of the level of Victoria Lake has shifted dramatically, and there are a lot of alien species because of the pollution and because of the monitoring of the area. What is now doing, we are doing at OSS as in many other countries and other regions, is the awareness of populations, and to conduct them to change their agriculture attitude, and to adopt agroecology, agroforestry, to eliminate chemical insecticides, all what is chemical entrance, and to review their methods. I hope
Thank you very
I
much, Doc.
answered your
I
question.
think we will now take one last question from Witanine. Just one last question from Witanine. If you have any more questions, you can just type them in the chat.
Oui, merci beaucoup, madame, de nous accorder encore la parole une fois de plus. Mais moi, je pense que nous devons maintenant hausser nos voix par rapport à la protection des zones humides, comme nous avions vu la fois passée à la COP 28. Il y a eu en fait des campagnes FONACH pour montrer à la communauté que nous devons protéger nos forêts que nous avons. Mais aujourd'hui, en fait, les recherches...
Sorry, Witanine, have you turned on your translation? We can't see the translation. You need to go to caption.
Lisa, ça se comprend en anglais ou préférez en français?
Présent?
Pour la traduction, ça ne marche pas jusqu'à maintenant?
Vraiment, j'ai un problème de la connexion qui fait à ce que souvent, je perds la ligne et qui me déséquilibre quand je fais des interventions.
Exactement. Donc, pour ça, il faut refaire la traduction. Si vous pouvez cliquer sur CC ou sur les 3 points, vous avez déjà trouvé la traduction automatique?
Ça évolue maintenant?
Est-ce que vous avez déjà mis la traduction automatique ou non?
Oui, oui.
Donc, il faut cliquer sur la traduction.
Je l'ai essayé, en fait.
OK. Donc, pour que la traduction comprenne que vous parlez français, sinon, on ne reçoit pas la traduction en anglais.
Alors, je ne sais pas si ça marche ou que ça ne marche pas.
Ça marche maintenant. Parfait. Merci.
OK. Alors, mon intervention était d'appuyer en fait les explications, donc, mais aussi les contributions des collègues pour montrer en fait l'importance que nous avons aujourd'hui par rapport à la protection des zones humides. Parce qu'au moins à la COP28, nous avions senti des campagnes sur l'environnement, donc campagne FONACHA. Alors, il y a des organisations de la société civile qui se sont mobilisées pour montrer en fait au monde entier que une fois si on n'arrive pas à protéger les forêts et donc les effets du changement climatique vont dévaster tout le monde. Or, aujourd'hui, il y a des études qui ont montré que les zones humides ont beaucoup d'influence par rapport aux forêts sur les changements climatiques. Et maintenant, pourquoi pas nous organiser, nous tous, pour montrer au monde entier que si ce n'est pas aujourd'hui que vous allez tenir compte de la protection par rapport au rôle, et je pense que ça pouvait aussi nous aider, voir comment orienter ou bien canaliser d'autres schémas par rapport à la protection des zones humides au niveau du continent africain.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Iman, you can assist with that question.
Okay.
I think the sound cut at a crucial a crucial moment. Imen, t'as compris la question?
Oui, oui, mais c'est c'est par rapport à la question qui est posée dans le chat, c'est ça?
C'est par rapport à la question de Ladislas.
Okay, Chris, are you able to assist with the questions in the chat? I cannot read French.
Oui, c'est ce que j'ai compris, mais c'est très long.
Okay.
Donc, je suis en train de résumer la question qui est posée par M. Kofi. Donc, il faut penser globalement et agir localement. La COP nous permet de penser globalement. Cependant, pour agir localement, c'est là le problème qui se pose. Il nous faut des actions concrètes sur le terrain. Certes, en Côte d'Ivoire, nous faisons des sensibilisations, mais nous sommes limités compte tenu des moyens financiers. Donc, c'est juste c'est-à-dire une remarque, c'est pas une question. Donc, j'ai l'impression que nos efforts restent uniquement au niveau des rencontres, des déclarations sous la forme. Cependant, il faut agir sur des questions de fond. Merci. C'était juste une remarque, c'est pas une question de la part de M. Kofi.
Merci, Imen.
Merci, Iman. So I think we've gone past the time that we had allocated for this session. Maybe I can just wind up this session and we'll continue the sessions tomorrow. Maybe just to add on what we have discussed, it's important that we as CSOs in the region, we collaborate more to ensure that we strengthen and harmonize the policies that are around wetlands, and also the environmental protection that Ronnie spoke about earlier. Then we also need to include community members in our conservation efforts and adopt a bottom-up approach that will engage all community members in all the areas to ensure that there's sustainability, there's inclusiveness, and all the unmarginalized in these communities to also ensure that they have the ecosystem services that they are actually thriving for. So with these little words, I will close this session, and hopefully you will join us tomorrow again, same time, that we can now listen to the other presentations that we had planned for. Thank you very much.
Thank you,